Portland Chess Shop here to bring you the chess action, and it's April 21st, 2012. Kramnik and Aronian played a chess match, the first round of the match this morning in Zurich, Switzerland. I recorded the game live, but the live recording that they streamed wasn't that good because you weren't actually able to see the board with all the pieces like this, which was a disappointment. So we're going to be going through the game after the fact, going through the moves. But what I do have is Crafty 20.14 down here, which will tell us, okay, in this position, the starting position in chess, d4 has been played 32% according to my database, e4 49%, knight c3 has never been played, and c4 has been played 6 times. This isn't never, this is negligible. Anyway, let's start playing. So we go forward. Kramnik starts with knight f3. Typical Kramnik. Alright, we see the Queen's Gambit. If pawn takes, it's the accepted. If e6 is played, it's the declined. If c6 is played, it's the Slav. Often this knight has already been developed to c3, and so there's a few. The options are a little bit different because this knight has already gone here. So, because in some cases, like e3 is played and the knight comes to e2. For example, in the Queen's Gambit decline exchange variation. So, Aronian decides to play c6. Aronian's known for almost always playing e6. He knows it very well. It's the Armenian school of thinking, is to play the Queen's Gambit declined. And so most of the strongest players in Armenia play that variation. They just know the theory, that country, they have all these secrets in that opening. They know it very deep. But he chooses to play c6. He probably prepared this against Kramnik, I would think, in order to, Kramnik's developing strategies to beat the Queen's Gambit declined, and so he plays something else to push him out of his main arsenal of opening theory. Because Kramnik is known for being very, very good at openings and very good at end games, and the place to beat him is in the middle game. The knight comes towards the center. Knights are good. Bring them out early. They're good at just controlling the center from the sides, so they're not a liability, but they are an asset, and they almost always have to come to the center because they have more squares. Like, you have 8 squares from the center and 4 squares from the side, 2 squares from the corner. This is played, so this makes it a full semi-Slav, right? The triangle structure, really solid. It overprotects this square. Bishop comes out to attack the knight. That pins the knight. And Aronian decides to play h6 immediately, challenging the bishop, saying, what do you want to do? If the bishop retreats, then there are some options in which possibly stealing this pawn for good. You attack the bishop again, and then you take this pawn, and when they expand, you keep it, which comes to some dynamic play. I haven't seen this game yet. So takes and takes. That's kind of interesting. So Kramnik is giving away the dark squared bishop. Bishops are really pretty good. So I don't think this is the best variation, but I think that Kramnik is going for an endgame and somehow thinks that he has some sort of an endgame advantage in this position. E3 is played, solidifying the center. Also, we want to develop this bishop so that we can castle. Knight comes out. This knight, where else was it going to go? It wasn't really going to go to the corner. It should probably come here, and it will have some dynamic options, different possible moves, including an immediate e5 break. Bishop is developed, and he takes. I think that's interesting. Now, probably the bishop is going to have to take. I wonder if he has an idea of centralizing the knight. So the bishop takes, and then we see g6. So now this bishop is getting fianchettoed. Instead of coming on this diagonal, it's going to be on the long diagonal. So the long diagonal is the longest diagonal, 8 squares on it versus 6 on this diagonal. Seems good. Castles is played, and he continues to fianchetto. Rook comes to e1, putting the rook on the same line as the king, centralizing the rook. Good, solid play. These knights are pretty good, I think. I think that White has a little bit of an initiative, but that's because he gave away the dark squared bishop, and that purple should have some defense in which case, like after e4, for example, just play e5 because he has a pretty good control of this square. And then in the later on, he can regain the initiative with the bishop pair and then keep it, attacking both sides of the board simultaneously with the bishops. That's what the bishops could do. Like a bishop on this square, for example, can attack across this diagonal and across this diagonal. Castles and pawn up is played. I'm pretty sure we're going to see e5. Yeah, we do. So Aronian has been prepared for this central break and has a well-timed counter thrust to blockade that square. If the pawn could go up again, then white would have a lot of space. It could be a very, very dangerous position. But here, this is a good move to make. Blockading this pawn, blockading some of the ideas. This is the square you control. This square is pretty well controlled by the pawn here. This is the weaker bishop in this type of variation. So pawn up is played. Or if takes, then the knight could take back. So we'll see. Decides to play rook over. This is a little bit of some tactical elements here, because if pawn takes, then I think pawn's going to have to take back, but then the knight can come with a discovery over here. We're going to be seeing something like that. Kramnik decides to move his rook up. I'm not sure exactly why he plays this, but it seems kind of interesting. Like a little bit creative, right? So the rook has the third rank. It could possibly go to d3, for example, to create sort of an Alechine's gun type battery down the d file. Because it doesn't look like pawn takes is good, because the knight will be able to take. But b5 is played. Wow. So that attacks the bishop. That's a cool move. Pawn can't take here, because pawn takes and then takes and rook takes, I guess. And maybe it's good for purple. Pretty sweet move here, b5. It was like if he didn't find an active move, he was going to be in a lot of trouble. So b5 is very active. Okay, this is sweet. After the bishop retreats, I think he's going to attack the knight as well. Oh, Kramnik does decide to take on c6. Wow. Takes on c6. The knight is attacked. He's going to be taking the bishop here. Does. And the knight comes forward. He doesn't even take the knight yet because the queen is attacked. Queen doesn't... Well, the queen could take here. No, the queen can't take on c6 because knight check here attacks the king and the queen in a fork. And then that's devastating. So this square is defended through a tactic, through the double attack. So the queen will be forced to move. The queen does move. Now takes, rook takes, and the queen comes to a4. There's a few different variations. We see that the position is very equal, according to Crafty. We also see that Kramnik is down over 20 minutes in time. So that's probably the most significant factor here. It's just that he's down in time. He's going to be feeling a little bit of the pressure, wanting to catch up a little bit. So, queen a4. Just trying to activate the queen, maybe take on c4. Bishop comes to b7. Attacking down this diagonal. So both of Aronian's bishops are on the longest diagonal. Which seems good. So he takes here. And to protect the square, there's some possible moves. Bishop takes. Pawn takes. Queen takes. So now... it is 5 pawns to 5 pawns, but there's a bishop versus a knight, and according to Crafty, black is very slightly winning for, I think, the first time. Takes, rook comes over, putting pressure on this pawn. The rook defends it, 3 attacking, 3 defending. g4 is played. That looks like a mistake, according to Crafty. It just doesn't look... I mean, it doesn't look like you're really attacking something. You're not really preventing f5, because it could still be played like takes to takes. That's really strong. That's a powerful center. So I think that this move is a little bit of a mistake. It looks like the computer agrees with me. It just doesn't... I don't know. It kind of almost creates like 3 pawn islands, in a sense. The king decides to move, but now it's equal again. We see another move. Kramnik being very aggressive with his pawn, playing the pawn up again. But opening up lines is good for the bishop. Takes, check, king retreats. And now, I'm not sure what white will play. But Crafty doesn't really understand Kramnik's plan here. F4. Look at how low on time Kramnik is right now. So that's really the factor. We might even want to just go back. I mean, he just used 40 minutes on like the last 5 moves, and they weren't even good moves. So F4 looks like a blunder. So really, time is a huge factor in chess, guys, because I think time was like Kramnik's position was fine. Like he wasn't winning anymore, but it was totally drawable, and that's like what he's good at is drawing games. But somehow the time, he was just way low on time and started just playing bad moves. So he plays F4, Rook B8 is played, attacking B2. It looks like there could be some pressure along the second rank if the Rook is able to take on B2. Takes is played, Rook takes B2. So these Rooks, he's going to be able to push probably, but it looks like the Rooks might double on the second rank, which would be dangerous. A2 is attacked. The knight retreats. Now he takes the pawn again. E6 is played. He just takes and Rook takes. Now, the bishop is worth more than the knight in an open position like this. You can see that this bishop is controlling a lot of squares, right? In one move it can go to either here or here and then control all these squares. Ton of squares. This knight can't go towards the center because of the bishop right now. And this pawn basically is pretty good. Knights are notoriously bad against outside pass pawns, and that's, I think, why this position is good for purple to this extent. So Rook moves to F5, knight moves over, he attacks the knight by moving his Rook to F4. It looks like G6, no, G6 can't fall. Can it? No. Well, that's a puzzle for everyone. Why not knight takes G6? Because after check, like king over, oh yeah, then you just play like Rook G2, and it's way too good. Because you're threatening to take here, and it's gross. Rook retreats, and then this Rook moves over, defending this square. Sort of some maneuvering of the Rooks. Rook moves to G6. We could see the king come forward to defend the pawn. We do. This Rook moves to C1. There's a lot of open lines. The Rooks are really good in endings with open lines. They can control a lot of squares simultaneously. Bishop moves over to attack the Rook, and now there's some crazy checks that you could play, like check here and then mate down here. Rook C7 check, king moves back. Rook E4 check, king over. Now the Rook moves over here. So Kramnik was able to defend the E3 square with this check, which is interesting. That's why there's not the check and then mate anymore. So this pawn isn't even really advancing so far. It's just that he's trying to use his pieces to attack the king, and basically white's king is even more exposed than black's because the bishop is just worth more than the knight. This knight's doing like literally nothing, right? Check, king over, check, king over. Rook over. So we see that this king has come to defend this pawn, the passed pawn, which does seem like progress. It's kind of complicated, a little bit dynamic of an ending. It looks like there's a tactic here for purple, which is G5, which wins a piece probably. He does play it. Plays bishop here for this move because the knight is still trapped, I think. He's also threatening check and then mate. So he has some serious threats. And that's the end of the game in this position. This move is pretty sick. You're threatening bishop takes pawn, king over, rook down, checkmate, but you're also threatening to take the knight. And this bishop also defends against, good checks. So that's the end of the game. Congratulations to Aronian, who won the game. hit the time increment on the 40th move and gained a little bit of time, but Kramnik saw that his position was really bad, so he resigned. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Please thumbs up the video if you can. I